Hi, I'm Jeff Garrison. Welcome to the Results on Purpose Coaching Podcast. This is where we try to uncover and share bits of leadership wisdom. And today we're going to be talking about something that is really simple, but totally not easy, and that is creating clarity in your business. Okay, welcome back. Today we're talking about clarity, and this is the number one thing for leaders to do, in our opinion, is to create clarity in the business. And we really think there's 5 pillars of clarity, and that is making sure people understand your mission and what it means, and making sure they understand the mindset. What's the behavior expectations in the organization. You might call them core values, but we use the term mindset. So mission and mindset, creating clarity around those things. The third pillar is making sure that everyone in the organization understands the result that they own. Essentially, why does their particular role exist? What's the outcome that the business needs from those people? And it should be a simple phrase or one sentence statement. The fourth pillar is making sure that people understand what it looks like when they're doing a great job. What does it look like for them to take ownership of and get the results that they own? And then the fifth pillar of clarity is about accountability. This is about the feedback that people get and the accountability that they have. So I mentioned right from the beginning that this is the number one job of every leader, to create that kind of clarity. And really what it boils down to is if everyone in your organization understands what's the mission, what's the mindset, what results do they own, what does it look like when they're killing it in their role, and they're getting lots and lots of feedback to confirm that they are in alignment, or to nudge them back into alignment, or in extreme cases to make a change. If you can master those 5 pillars as a business owner, and then get your leaders to master those 5 pillars and push it down through the organization, that's it. You win. You're killing it if you can do those things. So let's talk a little bit more about what does mission look like. I'll give you a couple examples, and this is kind of what I'm going to do today, is sort of walk through a little bit about what it looks like and try to keep the conversation relatively short. One of my clients, for example, has a mission to create a positive ripple effect. And I know you can't tell what business that person is in, who they're serving, and that's really not the point. The point is that the mission statement should be able to move around if you were to change targets or industries or something like that. But the mission statement is about to be the best at in this industry kind of thing. So for them to have a positive ripple effect, and that means that everything they do has to positively impact their customers, their peers, their vendors, and even the community. That's how far and wide that goes. They want that to be the thing. Let me share another mission statement. This is one of my favorites. It's been around. It's one of my first clients, and their mission statement is simply to kick ass. Doesn't fit every business for sure, and a lot of you might be thinking, we can't have that out there. And I want to tell you, mission statements aren't necessarily for marketing. And that's kind of where we get screwed up on these things. We think, well, people won't understand outside the organization, or it doesn't make sense. That's not the point. You can have your taglines that can be totally separate. It's great if your mission statement fits and you want to put it on your website or whatever it is, but that's not the point. It's to get everybody moving in the right direction, focusing on a single North Star, whatever you want to call it. But so theirs is to kick ass. And what's great is the owner can go around and say, hey, that phone call you just had, did it kick ass? The email you just sent, how we got that thing done and out the door? Did it kick ass? It just gets everybody thinking about being that kind of organization and showing up that way. So as a mission statement, it's excellent. And by the way it came about is when we were having our very first leadership team meeting and having the conversation about what a good mission is for their company. He kept using the phrase. And so we said, well, maybe that's it right there. Maybe we just build an organization around the idea that everything we're going to do kicks ass. It has stood the test of time. And from that day, they're about 5x, which is a big deal when you're already a 7-figure organization. 8-figure organization. So let's move on. Let's talk about mindset a bit. Again, it looks like core values. We don't always talk about the term core values because they're not really core in a lot of companies. And the way we know it's core is if somebody violates one of your core values, if you won't put them in a timeout, so to speak, and if they can't fix it, if you won't fire them, then it's not a core value. If you tolerate people not behaving according to your core values, and they're not really core values. They were probably built by your marketing people or with the idea of having something nice to put on your website. But that's not when we talk about mindset, we talk about, the way everybody needs to show up to work, show up to their peers, show up to your customers, show up to your vendors, and so on. I'll give you a few examples. And usually it's 4 or 5. One of my favorites is go pro, do it the right way. And that's just the idea. Everyone's got to be thinking about it. If you're not going to show up and strive to do everything right, not cut corners. And this is in a manufacturing environment, custom manufacturing, where this one exists. So that's really important. The supply chain, the actual fabrication, everything's got to be done just right. No cutting corners. It's got to be perfect, or when it goes out the door and needs to be assembled, installed, it just isn't going to work. So everybody has to have this go pro, do it the right way mindset. A lot of clients have a ownership type mindset, take ownership over your results, or just own it, no excuses kind of mindset. There's normally a be positive, be energetic kind of mindset. One of my favorites is a client has put your happy skates on, when that's their way of saying when you show up, leave whatever attitude you might have about what's going on at home or any of that stuff, leave that at the door and come and contribute to a positive, hardworking environment where we're just killing it. So put your happy skates on. Be respectful, or some type of description like that is commonly a mindset. Another one of my favorites is fix it with a level head. So, they want everybody in the organization thinking, hey, if there's a problem, we just take a breath, take a look at it, see what we can do to fix it. Here we don't panic, we don't get emotional, things like that. Just calm down, fix it with a level head. So when you pull these things together, this is the way people are evaluated about how they show up to work. So we need to make these things clear all the time as leaders, whatever it is. So everyone should know the mission and how their role fits into it, and the mindset, how they should be showing up at work. The third pillar, getting to that, is about people understanding the results that they own. And this is making it clear, why does a particular job exist? And this is really confusing for people because they think their job is to do stuff most of the time. But the stuff that you do, the stuff that's in your job description, those are the tactical things meant to get a particular result for the company. Like if you're in a service role, in the end, your job, the result you own, so to speak, is happy customers. All the processes that you go through, the skills that you've learned, the emails that you send, whatever it is, we haven't done a great job at it. Even if you feel like you've done everything right, if the customer's not happy, then perhaps in your role, you're not getting the result that you own. That's kind of an example of what that means. And finally, we talk about the result you own, but another pillar is making sure people understand what it looks like when they're killing it. And it's so funny. Good people will do what they think is right. They'll do the job the way they think is right, or they'll make decisions based upon what they think. And they might just be wrong, or they might just be a little out of alignment with what the organization wants. And so if that is the case, that's a leadership issue. That is us as leaders not constantly communicating, talking, again, creating clarity about these things. And the fifth pillar, giving people feedback. Give people feedback, good or bad, as soon as they deserve it. And that is a really, really important responsibility. And then, of course, there's the more formal feedback, the quarterly coaching conversations or whatever cadence you're at. If it goes beyond quarterly, probably not doing a good job of creating clarity. Certainly once a year is totally a terrible way to create clarity and expect people to all be on the same page. Intuitively, I think everybody knows that, but it doesn't get done all the time. So that last part, that's the giving feedback, that's the accountability part. Without feedback, without honest feedback, you got to let people know when they're out of alignment or they're missing the mark. We can't sit back and hope that they figure it out. And the fact is, giving quick feedback, we're trying to catch things while they're minor and stop them before they become major. And when issues become major, it's probably the leadership's fault. Not all the time, but a lot of times we just let something go, or we overlooked it, or we weren't paying attention. In other words, we weren't creating clarity all the time. As I said at the beginning, simple stuff, but it's really not easy. Now, when it comes to this, it's interesting that we struggle to give constant feedback to people. And I think of coaches. Imagine a coach, like I'm a big NFL fan, so imagine an NFL coach or a team of coaches at the beginning of the year sitting down, having some team meetings, giving everyone the playbook, maybe even walking through the playbook in extreme detail and thinking, okay, we've covered it. Everybody knows what to do. They know what their job is. They know how to do it. We've covered it. And then you go and you just play the games without any practices or feedback for the players. And then at the end of the season, it's a winning season, it's a losing season, whatever. And that does sound ridiculous to think that any professional sports team or amateur sports team would do it that way. But that is the way a lot of people run their businesses. They do the onboarding, they do some training, and then largely they just let people go. And when there are problems, that's when they come in and sort of try to fix things or correct things, but they're not giving feedback all the time. Contrast that with, again, an NFL coach. Think about they're practicing their plays and constantly players are getting feedback. This was good, but tweak this a little bit, or maybe pulling them aside and talking to them about a particular skill set, or here's an opportunity for you. All these things, it's constant. And I get we can't do this in our business quite that way, but we can come a lot closer. And here's the irony of the whole thing. Interestingly enough, we don't have time to do it, right? We don't have time to be paying that much attention, to be giving that much feedback, to have the regular coaching conversations one-on-one with people. But I'll tell you, if you'll do those things, you'll have a lot more time. Usually your time gets stolen or gets sucked up because you're dealing with the impact of a lack of clarity. And as leaders, that's our fault. if we would spend more time creating clarity, we would have more time to do positive things, to be working on our department or on our business, and not so much getting dragged into the weeds all the time. So I'll kind of leave it with that. We have shared, what are 5 pillars, what we call 5 pillars of creating clarity, and this will work in your business. It takes some deep thought and some time to start to figure these things out. Again, what's our mission? Why are we here as a business? What's the impact we're trying to create? What's the mindset? How do we expect people to show up at work and behave and treat each other and so on? Why does each role exist? What's the result that they're here to get for us? In other words, what impact do they need to have on the company? Not so much just getting stuff done, but what's the impact? What does it look like when they're doing it? And what is our way of holding people accountable, giving them feedback, coaching them into alignment when necessary, recognizing when they're doing a great job, and finally, which is a topic for another day, how do we handle it when we have figured out that they don't fit our mission mindset or they can't get the results that we expect them to do? So thank you for tuning in. I appreciate any comments. You can leave those below. And if you kind of like the stuff you're hearing or are curious and think you might want to check out Results on Purpose, go to our website, check out the link below. Also, if you like what you're hearing and think you'd like to be talking about this stuff and teaching this stuff and working with leadership teams about stuff like this, well, check out Becoming a Coach. Again, you can go to the resultsonpurpose.com site and check it out.